how Emma felt. I first started noticing spots on my hand, and at first I started to ignore them because I didn't think what they could be. I wasn't really that concerned by them. And then when they started to spread, they started to feel like shapeless blobs, and I just felt like Allie did a really great job of kind of explaining like those first initial thoughts of discovering the spots. Did anyone else have any thoughts?
I can totally relate to that. Like the whole thing about it being the same but on the other side. I know
Mhm.
that that's like super common for people who have what is the word I'm looking for? Not segment non-segmental vitiligo, which is what I have, and I think Aparna, you have that too. So I noticed as well that when I first was having spots that they showed up on like my right arm and then they were on my left arm and then they showed up on my knee and then my right knee. So that's definitely something that's scary. And I understand not wanting to show your mom. I didn't have a chance to read this book, but so I'm wondering how old was the main character of the book at that time?
12.
12. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so when I was 12, I was more like freaked out by it than the narrator of that book probably is. So I like went to my mom all concerned about it, but it's interesting to see like a different perspective of someone who wants to hide it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, I had vitiligo when I was like 3, so I don't really remember what it was like to notice. I think my mom noticed it before I did.
Mhm.
But I feel like I had very much the same experience every time I like noticed my vitiligo spreading. Even now, it's very active. And like I notice new spots or this pigments, that depigments. And like my first thought is still like, oh, let me make sure that it's there in a few days. Let me check on it and not get freaked out immediately.
Mhm.
Still like the same thought process, like 13, 14 years later. I think that's kind of interesting. And also the thing with the symmetry, like that always happens to me. If I see it on one side, I like proactively put the treatment on the other side because I'm like, it's gonna show up there. So I think that's interesting. That's a very shared experience.
Yeah, I always find myself like checking the other side. Like when I first started getting a patch on my wrist, it started on my right side. I like every couple days was looking at my left. I was like, I know you're gonna happen. Just show yourself. I know you're gonna be there.
I remember when I was in school, I was elementary school and playing, and we had to play um, in PE.
Hmm.
And I remember the knees, when they were progressively turning or changing colors. Then I remember distinctly the one knee matching the other knee. And, at that point, I hadn't fully accepted my whole self, my total being with having vitiligo at that time. It's a progression of acceptance. Even though I started so young going through the process, I still, got to a point where when you're starting preteen years and in elementary, you're noticing that you're different. You do notice some differences in yourself when you compare yourself to others.
Hmm.
So playing sports and having to wear shorts, yeah, I was self-conscious at times. And I remember the segmental parts where, you had the knee here, then it would match the other knee, then the elbow and the other elbow. So I remember that distinctly.
It's so funny. On the very last line, it says, I've been wearing my socks around the house so mom wouldn't see.
Hmm.
Wow. And I didn't have to look at it. Her little 12-year-old mind.
Hmm.
She don't want to see it. She's blocking it out and she's hiding it from her mom. What can anybody say about that? Have any of you done that?
Hmm.
I didn't have that experience. My mom noticed mine because I was so young. My parents noticed my mother in particular, the white spot on my right foot. I was like 4 or 5, really 5. So she noticed it before I did.
Wow.
Um, I mean, in terms of the main character's mom, this is more of like a general comment, but I guess it also relates to this. Her mom is so much like my mom. Like what I took that from the book. Her mom, for like people who may not have read the book, is like super overprotective, like always looking for the next spot, like super proactive, always asking the doctor like what treatments there are, and has like a list of questions whenever she goes to see the doctor. And so for me, I could definitely relate to like the avoiding my mom, because she would just kind of like examine my face, be like, "Oh, I think another spot's coming." And I'm like, "Okay,
I don't
can
want to
you
hear
not
that.
stress me out?" You know, so yeah, I think I would more so like avoid those kinds of conversations with my mom, because sometimes I just didn't want it to be a topic of conversation. I understood that she was stressed, but it felt like at times she was more stressed about it than me. And that's also kind of like a theme that comes later in the book, much later, where the main character, confronts her mom and is like, I see all like these questions that she sees, like a list of questions that her mom is taking to the doctor, and it's like about depigmentation creams and like, you know, whether they can make, changes to diet or whatever. And the main character, feels like her mom is ashamed of her. And that was something that I really struggled with as a kid as well, like thinking, why do my parents care so much about treatment? Like they seem to care about it more than I do. But the mom said something that I thought was so pertinent, and it was the same kind of thing that my mom told me, which was I'm like reading directly from it because I annotated it, but she said,
What page?
okay, it's on Kindle, so I'm not sure if my pages will line up with yours,
Oh, okay.
but um, she she says, sorry, um, on page 294 of my book, she says, if you ever have kids, you'll know that your first priority becomes their happiness. You want to do everything you can to keep them safe and happy. You want the world to be kind to them, and that's not always something you can control. When we found out you had vitiligo, I was so worried that your world might become a crueler place. I know how awful kids can be about this kind of stuff. So I that was very much in line with what my mom said, and it was kind of like healing to like hear those kinds of thoughts from another parent, and kind of cement the idea that like my parents weren't ashamed of how I looked. They were just worried that I was going to be made fun of, or I was going to have less
Detective.
opportunities in the world. So that's why they were so, insistent on, treatments. I mean, it was definitely a choice that I made as well, but sometimes it felt like they were pushing for it more. As a kid, I feel like kids are pretty resilient. And so sometimes they don't care as much. There's other days where they do care more. Um, but it was just interesting to kind of hear that perspective and relate to it really heavily.
Yeah, I like agree with everything you said for me too. And my parents always told me all of that. When I was really young, I very much did not want my vitiligo to be treated. I just like hated the phototherapy and the creams and everything. So I didn't get treated for like the first 4 years that I had it. And because of that, it did spread a lot. But at the same time, I'm kind of glad that my parents respected the fact that that was making the treatment was making me far more upset than the vitiligo itself. And then, like, the second that I said, no, I want to treat this now, then they were fully on board with that as well.
How old were you when you said that to them? We
Um,
met you at 8, so
yeah, I was 7 when I decided to treat my.
wow. Wow.
And like this theme of like the mother kind of directing the treatment options and how aggressive everything is brings me back to a quote on page 103. It starts, it's Emma, and she goes, I knew I should be paying attention. It's my skin after all. It was kind of hard too, because they started speaking science, her mother and the doctor, instead of English. And mom kept interrupting with questions every time Dr. Howard was starting to get somewhere. She and Dr. Howard finally decided that twice a week I will put this cream on my spots to help with the color come back and try to keep the spots from spreading too fast. I like found that so jarring that like it was specifically said that the mother and the doctor decided this, and that Emma was kind of this like secondary outsider on making these medical decisions. And she does acknowledge the fact that it is my skin and I should be contributing to the conversation. But it's also my skin, and I'm so overwhelmed by getting this diagnosis and hearing these facts and being told all of this medical jargon that I'm unable to make a decision now, and thus the decision was made in my place.
In some cultures, 12-year-olds don't have a say.
Hmm.
You're gonna eat this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna, and so I'm not saying maybe cultural for Aparna, but Aparna's parents is so amazing. They allowed her to have a voice in her skin condition. That's amazing. Versus what you're saying here in the book.
Hmm.
We don't know what culture they are. It might be a cultural thing. I know for me, um, parents, you don't have a say in
Hmm.
anything. 12, 13, 14, you don't have a say.
Yeah.
So,
I do feel like what, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll talk to you.
I do feel like the quote that you mentioned though about like feeling like there's a lot of jargon in medical appointments is something that like I definitely thought of when I was a kid because I mean even when a doctor tries to explain a treatment to you, you don't really understand what it is. You think like, okay, I'll put something on my skin, maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. Like that's all explained more so to the parents as well as the risks. Like you're not really clear on that.
Hmm.
And I mean, to some extent, I do think that got better as I got older. And I mean, I started asking questions. I also, Dr. Harris explained a lot to me, but I do think a lot of kids experience that. And that is something that, doctors should try to communicate with the patient
and
directly.
that's why we're hoping the next generation of dermatologists, right here in front of me, look at them, all four of them right here. This is a change that we want. And I hope you all will get a chance to listen to my interview on the podcast yesterday with Cassie. And I'm saying, you guys are getting this training now that when you become dermatologists down the road, get down, not on your knees, but get down to the level of the kid and ask the kid,
Mhm.
not if they're 4 and 5, oh no, but 12, as we're seeing in Alice Standish's book, get down to the level and the age of this child and just engage them in conversation. So, how are you feeling about this? Would you like
Mhm.
to get something, your treatment? Just bring it down to their level. And I'm amazed, and I said that on the podcast yesterday. The generation of teens, you guys right now, can't touch y'all because y'all gonna do it right. The generation right now, they got a whole lot of work to do, and it might just be too late. So, Dr. Priyanka gonna hit us up correctly. Dr. Bello, we have no problem. Dr. Apana, Dr. Cassie, and Dr.
Mhm.
And the others, we know y'all are gonna
Mhm.
do it right because you're getting the exposure. The conversation is happening now, and you'll
Mhm.
remember this. You will remember this day. Yeah. Cassie, let me throw it in now. Thanks for bringing this book. I've had this book on my shelf for a while. The sun is beaming into my that the little when you have a book too long, the color color change. So I'm glad you brought this book out, and we can't. This could not be the first. We have to do this a second time to catch some other people who didn't make it today. I'm
Hmm.
sorry. Continue the dialogue here. This is good.
Yeah, I agree. It is a really good book. I actually got it at the World with Lego Day conference, I think like 3 years ago. And I read it when I was 13 and I really enjoyed it at that time.
Wow.
I think it's a shame that it's advertised as like a children's book because
Yeah.
I got so much out of it as like someone I think like on the other side of my vitiligo diagnosis and someone who's like grown into it. It just took me back to like my roots, if that like makes sense. And it just really like made me reflect on how far I have come with my
Yes.
diagnosis.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
agree. Like I remember the story from when I read it, but like I now I'm thinking I would really like to reread it and kind of think about how my mind has changed a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet, but now I'm wanting to read it. When I get
Intrigued. He's intrigued.
I am
Yeah.
intrigued. I do want to read it. And that's a good point that you brought up about being like brought back to your roots because like even now sometimes I like forget what I went through. It's not that I was necessarily like trauma blocking it out, but it was just so long ago and it was something that was like so much for me. And now I'm in like such a better place than I was at before that I like don't sometimes don't want to go back there. And it's good to again see how far you've come and how much you've grown
Yeah.
into your disorder. So that's it's a good
Well,
plan. Yeah.
I'd like to get the book. I'm excited to read it because, as you all are saying, it does bring back, when you're talking about different points from the book, it does bring back memories in my mind of what I went through. It does. And so it is a good thing to remember those things so you are able to relate to others and help them as they're going through.
The
You can
best
be
place
there
to
for
get it,
them.
I'm hearing, is on Amazon as a used book because it's not
Okay.
be tattered and ripped apart or nothing. I got mine from the author I heard about, Rich Francis, sent me a book. And so I've had it here. Honestly, I read the first 2 pages and that was it. But say it again, Bella. Bella and I, we're intrigued. I'm gonna delve into this, really delve into it.
And then for those who like ended up not being able to read the book, just kind of going back to the quote about Emma's mom kind of dictating these treatments. You learn like later on in the book that she hides these treatments from some of her closest friends, because they involve her either showing up to school late, having to leave school early, and she's shameful of this. So she makes constant excuses. So she doesn't have to explicitly say she's undergoing treatment. Her older sister comes home and teaches her how to do her makeup to hide some of the spots when she puts on her face. And then towards the end of the book, Emma, who has done so much work to kind of hide this diagnosis from the people around her, just started to decide, I'm not going to wear makeup. I really don't want to be doing these treatments. And she ends up standing up to her mom saying, I want you to like love and care about me for the way I am, because she is prideful when it comes to her spots and she starts wearing them out in the open, going to school with them, and she sees them as a point of uniqueness. And it reminds her of her grandmother, who at the beginning of the book unfortunately passed away. So it was nice to see kind of that journey of, at first she was just going along with her mother in order to kind of appease her. Towards the end of, she kind of grew into her diagnosis. She saw it as a connection to her grandmother, and so she ceases from kind of hiding her spots.
Did you get a sense of what age at this point she had been? Because she started out with her being about 12. So what
Mhm.
age are we talking about at the end? What
I think
age?
still 12. It's only a couple months.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's only a couple months the story takes place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think she like realizes she has more support,
Yeah.
not just from her family, but from her friends. So she like kind of grows into it a little bit faster.
And she has a voice and she used it.
Hmm.
It
And
reminds me so much of you guys on here. Y'all gonna kill me when I say it, but they came onto this call with no voice. And then Bella opened up her and she says, and I'm a swimmer. I'm saying, you're going swimming with spots? No. Bella is a bad swimmer, right, Belle? And I'm saying, how is she going swimming? People are gonna see her spots. But Bella said, I don't care. Right, Belle?
Yeah, I mean, it was something that was like a non-negotiable for me was swimming. It was like I'm not gonna let this disease stop me from swimming. Like it's something that makes me me, and it would.
And that sucked my heart out of my chest when you said stuff like that. You just ripped me. Wow. Wow. Y'all always trying to make me cry. Let me shut my camera down. Y'all are ridiculous. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm done.
Cassie, I think the point that you brought up about treatment burden and like how that was also kind of a part of her hiding her
Hmm.
condition was very interesting. So I remember like one of the parts that I least liked about having vitiligo on my face was not just the spots, but I would put like Protopic on it in the mornings. So when I showed up to school, it'd be like I had a whole thick layer of this
Oh,
cream on my face. And that was very annoying. And then I know, like in middle school, I used to go like straight after school. I would go to my phototherapy treatments 3 times a week. So I'd never hang out with my friends on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. So like those are kind of parts that, they're not medical. They don't come with the condition in a more scientific sense, but it's still part of the patient experience And I think it's interesting to hear that as well.
Mm.
Yeah. I think something that I really, really appreciated was kind of the advocacy stance that this book tried to take. I noticed that several points throughout the book, but I want to highlight a quote that I picked up from chapter 14. Um, and again, sorry, my page numbers are off from your guys's, but
On the same page, because my 294 was your 294.
oh, okay, great. Um, but um I wanted to talk about the part where it says there's like a pamphlet that she gets from her doctor, and it says like one of the headings is vitiligo dangerous or painful? And this is an FAQ thing. The answer says vitiligo rarely causes symptoms besides skin whitening. It is not painful, dangerous, or contagious. However, the condition causes many sufferers psychological distress, which can lead to social anxiety or depression. And no pamphlet I've ever received has ever touched on anything like that.
Mm.
And I thought that it was really interesting, not even just like with vitiligo, but with mental health in general. I feel like this book took such a strong stance. Like they talk about mental health in older people as well. For example, one of this girl's grandma's friends lost her husband and then was super depressed. And they talk about how she got therapy and medication and about how she was able to bounce back from such a big loss.
Mhm.
And I thought that was such a courageous stance, and I thought it was so insightful and so new. And for anybody who doesn't have vitiligo reading this, they can see like, oh, this is not just a cosmetic issue. And it continues in the FAQ saying, therefore, vitiligo should not be considered simply a cosmetic condition, which is so wonderful because we hear so many advocates talking about this. So that made me start wondering, like, is the author, she must have done her research or she must have vitiligo because the way that she included that tidbit was just so meaningful to me as a patient.
I have that page like highlighted, you probably can't tell because my glare, but highlighted, starred, annotated because that was like one of my favorite sections in the entire book. Because it also like walks through like how did I get it, and what I really appreciated it as like a medical student was it was clear language. It
Mhm.
was because and the next couple pages is the quote that I just read about the mother deciding to undergo treatment and that Emma complains about getting lost in that medical jargon. I just loved how clear this like section was. Like, how did I get it? What is it? How can I overcome it? And it was like in layman's terms, which is what it should be. That should be the explanation patients receive.
Mhm. I don't see where it says, and I don't know, Cassie, you know the answer to what Priyanka is saying. Do we know if she has vitiligo? I can't see it anywhere.
I don't know if Allie Standish has
Yeah.
real.
The back page talks about being from North Carolina. The only thing she ever won in school is for I guess her yearbook says the messiest desk.
Her husband has vitiligo. I just looked it up.
Oh, okay. There you go. We found a connection. All right. And by the way, once Cassie brought this up that we should do something like this, I immediately sent her an email, but never got a response back. But I'm not going to give up. I'm going to try again to see if we can get her to come on.
I think she also is pretty active on Instagram, so that could be like a great way to reach
Ah,
out. I found her Instagram if you'd
excellent.
like it over.
Excellent. Feel free to write her. Any of you with Instagram, write her and tell her that, Vit Friends did this and talked today about her book. Please, Priyanka, please, that's your assignment.
Yeah, sure.
Uh,
I'd love to. I was actually thinking about reaching out to her just for,
Excellent.
yeah, I really enjoyed the book. Yeah, so I wanted
Yeah.
to let.
Mhm.
Another theme that I really liked, just I think throughout the book in general, is this like thought that Emma like wants to disappear, and she like often wishes throughout the book that she could disappear. Um, and so like something that always kept on like popping into my mind was if I ever had those moments where vitiligo made me want to feel like I wanted to disappear or become invisible. Um, I think because Emma just felt like she was constantly standing out when she went to school, especially when some of her spots started showing on her face.
Mhm.
So I really wanted to like pose the question to the group at large, like, did you ever have any moments that you felt you wanted to just be invisible, just hide away into the crowd because of your vitiligo?
Absolutely. There are times when I felt that way, growing up. I mean, basically, um, well, I grew up in a family that accepted me. They loved me. My mom wouldn't let me feel sorry for myself. But when you go to school, as listening to your book, when we're listening to the story in the book, you know, um, you'll notice changes. I mean, you'll notice differences growing up. And you're saying the girl wanted to disappear, felt like disappearing at times. So you'd notice, I would notice when people would notice, look at my skin. Um, but I grew up with it, but there's still times you just notice and you felt the differences. Like you felt like you stood out or that you were different in that regard. And like I would want to sometimes just be away from people.
Right.
Mhm.
But at the same time, over the years, I've learned to accept myself and love myself. But, I had to wear the derma blend. When the spots started in the face, you'd have to wear makeup. I'd have to wear derma blend,
Mm-hmm.
actually, to cover the spots and all.
Oh, yes.
So, so yes, I can relate to that to answer your question.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think there was hardly a moment where I felt like I didn't want to disappear, having vitiligo, especially getting it right on the cusp of puberty, like when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
Kids start, or I guess tweens, teens, they start worrying about all sorts of things. Like you're already insecure, like going into high school, and then adding like a visual difference on top of that, it's like, the insecurity goes crazy. And so,
Yep.
yeah, I felt that way all the time, all the time. And there's actually another like quote that she kind of gives later on in the book, a little bit later, where she it's in like chapter 21, at the very start of chapter 21. She says that she's really careful about keeping her head down in the hall
Mhm.
and making sure that in class her hair is always hanging loose around her face so that you can't see the spots from the sides. And honestly, even now, I do that. Like I do that. And she says, if I have to talk to someone up close, I rest my chin on my hands so that my fingers cover them up. And I was like, that is
Wow.
so specific. She is like, she has a camera, a hidden camera looking into my life, and she knows that I do that because I do that. Like on work, like in work, on like calls, if I haven't put on makeup because I'm working at home, I
Right.
will rest like my chin on my hands because, I'm like close to the camera. And so I just related to that so much. And I guess I in those moments I always feel like I want to disappear, or I wish the other person could disappear and just not look as closely, you know what I mean? And yeah, it was just so relatable. I knew that she must have had like some personal experience with it, whether she had it or somebody she loved, or maybe she researched really well. So yeah, that was very like on point in terms of like describing the specific ways in which she wanted to disappear or ways in which she did make herself disappear. I felt like a lot of the time when I felt that way, I did make myself a lot smaller. I would like physically shrink. I would become like obviously it wasn't just a cosmetic thing, right? Like my whole mannerisms changed. So it was really interesting to see that so accurately reflected in a fictional character.
Mhm. Or when she cuts her hair before she has
Right, yeah. She cuts
to
her bangs.
stain the spots above her eyes. So she chops bangs last minute, and her mom starts freaking out because she cut her hair.
Yeah.
And actually, one of her English teachers, who we find out later on in the novel, has a personal connection to vitiligo. She has two friends who had it and who grew up with it and kind of experienced similar feelings to how Emma's feeling throughout the book. But the English teacher notices that she comes in with these bangs, and due to her personal knowledge on vitiligo and growing up with it, she puts two and two together that, oh, the spots above your eye, you're trying to hide. So she cuts her hair in the teacher's bathroom so she feels more comfortable going to class throughout the rest of the day, knowing that these spots now are safely hidden behind bangs. And I think I just like overall really liked in the book that even though at the start of it, Emma's vitiligo like makes her feel invisible, but in many ways towards the end, it forces her to be seen and not just by the people around her, like in school and stuff, because of her vitiligo, but there's growth in her relationship with her mother at the end of the novel as well. And they kind of excise some of these demons that they have and these kind of assumptions they have about how each of them feel about each other. So I really appreciated that, even though at the start she wanted to hide away and become invisible due to her vitiligo makes her be seen by people throughout the community.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like the way that people perceive you is such an important part of it.
Mhm.
Because it's like as a kid or as a teenager, it's like so much of what you do or how you present yourself, the clothes you wear, the makeup you wear, how you have your hair, everything is like, oh, I want to blend in or I want to stand out in this specific way. And if you have vitiligo, that's not something you can control. I mean, you can try to cover it up, but the fact that it's there is something just beyond your control. So if that makes other people notice you or like draws attention to yourself, that can be really hard. And I mean, as a kid, I was very shy and like in every way of my life. I was like, don't look at me. I want to blend in. But if I have a big patch on my face, it's a little hard to do.
Mhm.
Mm.
And then kind of continuing with the theme of Emma kind of wanting to be invisible, I really liked on page 237. She writes, the next day, I get called on in social studies to answer a question. And in English, I raise my hand when Miss Singh asks someone to explain the difference between mood and tone. Both times I get the answer right. Both times nobody acts like there's anything weird about it. A couple kids turn to look at me while I talk, but most just keep looking bored. Nobody gasps or laughs or whispers. I'm just a kid getting called on in class. For the first time since Edie's text, some things kind of feel normal. And so, kind of we find out in the middle of the book, there's this girl who's ends up being a bully. Not specifically about Emma's vitiligo, just she kind of just doesn't get along with her, and she starts spreading rumors about her at school, that vitiligo is contagious. But what I really liked about that quote was, you know, I am not wearing any makeup. I'm not wearing any of like my treatment creams and you can clearly see my spots, but I'm now just a normal kid. I'm a normal seventh grader sitting in class answering a question. And the reason people are looking at me is not because of my spots, but because I'm super smart and I'm getting this question right. And so I really liked kind of how we go from Emma's mindset of everyone's looking at me because of my vitiligo to, oh no, everyone's looking at me because I raised my hand and was answering the question.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of times in our minds, we can make up that people actually care more about our vitiligo than they do. Like, I mean, it genuinely blows my mind how many people actually know what vitiligo is now compared to like 10 years ago, right? When I was first diagnosed with vitiligo. And so I'll always open up my explanation of my disease as, oh, I have vitiligo. I don't know if you know what that is. And 95% of people already know what it is, right? And I think with more of that awareness, people have started accepting vitiligo or people with vitiligo as normal, which, normal is overrated. And that's actually something that one of the characters says in the book. And I think it's the doctor, yeah. The main character says something about like how she wants her skin to go back to normal, or she asks something like how much time until my skin goes back to normal. And then her doctor is like, well, normal's kind of like overrated, like we need to kind of rethink what our idea of normal is, right?
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of people now, when they see somebody in public with vitiligo, and vitiligo that's very, clear, like it's generalized, it's symmetrical, it's in people with darker skin tones, they won't really stop and stare at those people. Like it'll just be kind of like a once over and then you look away. Like nothing too out of the ordinary. So I feel like a lot of times people didn't really care about my vitiligo, except I made it into like a bigger thing than it actually was. And that's also kind of another theme that we see in the book, where um this is kind of towards the end. They intertwine a lot of like magic and like fairy tale stuff within the book, which I also thought was super interesting. But in that vein, there's kind of this book that um the main character is writing with another person. And in the book, or like the journal, I guess, one of the lines is your fear created the witch. And like the witch is like a representation of her disease. Um, and the line continues, fear that without your grandmother to love you, you would not be worthy of love any longer, that without her to see you, you would simply disappear. So again, connecting back to this idea of our fear making the problem seem bigger than it actually is.
Mhm.
I definitely agree with what you said about like having explaining to people and people already knowing what that is. It would have been such a foreign concept to me like 5 years ago that that's a thing. But like I remember when I used to explain it to people as a kid, not a singular person would ever be like, oh, I know what that is. I think I remember maybe one or two instances from my entire childhood like that. But like now it's more than half the people. Like you said, they'd be like, oh, I went to high school with someone who had it. I had a friend who had it. My sister has it, or something like that. Or at least people know, like Michael Jackson, Winnie Harlow, people know all of that. And that's kind of a nice feeling. But now also do ask, oh, do you know what that is before I start? I thought that was nice.
Yeah, I think another quote that I really liked, it's in chapter 30 on page, it starts on 206. She's getting ready to go back to school after kind of this bully started spreading rumors that vitiligo is contagious. Stay away from Emma. She's contagious. You're going to catch it. It's deadly. Kind of like the exact opposite of the information we get from the doctor in her FAQ. Um, and she's kind of getting ready to go back to school after spending a couple days at home, kind of recovering mentally from the bullying she was experiencing at school. And she writes, I reach for my concealer, then hesitate. The counter is dotted with little plastic tubes and glass bottles of my makeup. But what's the point of wearing it anymore? Everyone thinks I look like a zombie underneath it anyway. What does it matter if I show them what's really there? So I drop the concealer into the drawer beside the sink. Then I sweep the rest of the makeup in too. When I come down for breakfast, Boomer, her dog, is the only one who doesn't stare at me. They're used to seeing my patches by now, but not in the morning before school. Dad only looks for a second, then says, Morning, butterfly, and slides over a plate of toast. Lily stares up from her laptop, her mouth slightly open. Lily's her sister. I can't quite read her expression, but when mom looks up, I know instantly that the mom who rubbed my back and watched Netflix with me earlier in the week is gone. Honey, mom says softly, did you run out of makeup? I didn't run out. Is that how you're going to go to school? She asks, taking a tiny sip of orange juice. Yes. There's a tense silence. Then, are you sure? Mom starts. Anger bubbles up inside me. I should have known Mom would react like this. I push back from my chair so suddenly that Boomer startles and skulks away upstairs. It's my face, Mom, not yours, and I can do what I want with it. Emma, I just, Mom, Lily mutters. Emma's right, Dad says, then turns to me. You look great, hon. Um, and so I really like that because it's like kind of the first like little pebble that we get of Emma standing up to her mom and kind of trying to, in her own way, explain to her mother that she's coming to terms with this diagnosis and she should, right alongside Emma, come to terms with it. And I really thought it showed the parallel and differences that we've kind of were seeing throughout the book between how her father, who's very close to Emma and kind of comforts her during this like initial diagnosis process, and how her mother treats Emma during this initial diagnosis, and how just absolutely different they are.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I could kind of relate to this scene. Not in the sense that my parents are, they don't like me going out without makeup. In fact, my mom is scared that I'm going to ruin my skin with all the makeup that I put on. So she's always offering to buy me like skincare and stuff, like expensive skincare to make sure that my skin still stays good. But I mean, even before this call, my mom was telling me to like hurry up and eat before I hopped on call because I hadn't eaten lunch yet. And she saw me and she was like, "Oh, like you have such little time, like you have to put on your makeup too." And I was like, "They all have vitiligo. They all know. I don't need to put it on." And she was like, "Oh yeah, like I forgot." Because she's so used to seeing me putting makeup on before all of like my other calls, right? Um, and I also think my parents kind of used to struggle with this before. Now it's less of a problem, but more when I was younger. Kind of our culture, there are different ways that people view vitiligo, and we're Indian, and I think Indian aunties and uncles are known to ask like a lot of questions. And so sometimes I wouldn't cover up the vitiligo like on my chest, for example, or on my arms, on my back. And my mom would say like, "Oh, don't you want to like cover that up? Like, don't you think people are going to ask questions?" And I was like, "Well, if they want to ask questions, they want to ask questions. Like, I'll deal with them." And so she kind of learned to let me do what I was comfortable with. Again, she was trying to protect me from like other people asking questions and like potentially hurting my feelings. But then she kind of realized like she's old enough to make her own decisions about her own skin. Like she'll be fine. And so this is kind of like another point in which Emma's showing her parents, her mom particularly, like I'm old enough, I can deal with it myself. I can deal with any questions or any taunts, whatever that come my way. And I don't need to wear makeup, which is really nice to see from a character. I think a lot of times we see people changing in like stereotypical like teen movies, like the nerdy girl with glasses gets a makeover and suddenly she's beautiful and everybody likes her. But this is showing that you don't need to become prettier. You can just be yourself and people will still like you. People will still treat you well, which was nice to see after all those like cliche teen movies. So,
Mhm. And I'm
I,
sure we all had moments that we just wanted to like swipe everything on the vanity into a drawer and lock it. And
right.
we're just, I really thought like that looking at herself in the mirror and like having that moment of, you know what, I'm not going to put my makeup on was like the exact kind of way I would want her to come to terms with her vitiligo. Like she was, it was a choice, it's a fork in the road, and she like decided to be strong, be proud of herself, and just put all the makeup away and just be who she is.
And I see this a little different too. I see it as not so much the mother wanting her to wear the makeup or put on all this makeup or whatever, but the mother knows that this world that she's going out to face is cruel.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And so she, whatever means to avoid the taunting, the bullying, the pointing, the staring, I think that's the angle the mother is coming from.
Mhm.
Are you going, what she said, are you going out like that? What did she say? Oh, did you run out of makeup or something? She said, or
Yeah.
something.
Did
Yeah,
you need to go buy more?
yeah. So she know what's out there,
Mhm.
what her daughter will face. So I think she's looking at it from that angle.
Mhm.
But who knows?
Well, I think
you have to do a part 2 to this, please.
yes, because we didn't even touch upon like some of her interactions with her
Yeah,
bully and like how she overcomes that.
yeah,
But this was great.
yeah. You have to schedule part 2.
Hmm.
And so you said we can get a copy of the book. Um, I haven't read it, but you said I could get a copy, or anyone listening can get a copy of the book. Is it used from Amazon? Is that what
Yes,
you said, or
Amazon
did I
has
miss
used
something?
ones cheap.
Mm,
Yeah, I haven't looked,
okay,
but
all
check it
right.
out. Yeah, yeah.
This is a good one. Sounds good. This is a good
It
one.
sounds
Mm-hmm.
very good. It sounds very good. Now,
Yeah.
I know for the rest of the year, the next 2 meetings, um, but one of you, somebody's gone.
Yeah.
I typed it out somewhere. We had Aparna was going to talk to her sister, or Priyanka was going to talk to her sister. Oh
Yeah.
no, I know it now. Priyanka, you were going to talk to um,
Erica.
Erica, and so get
Yes.
back to us on that, so we could, if that's not
Yeah.
happening, we could yield the spot back to Cassie to continue. Or the same for Bella was going to look into other autoimmune or something. If
Hmm.
any one of those don't pan out for us, Cassie, please continue this and help
Yeah.
us. You guys post it. This is good. Post it
Mhm.
to Stephanie. Post it to the Devon and those Tiffany. Send it out to people. This is interesting stuff, and we can't
Okay.
share this all to ourselves. We have to share this
Hmm.
and encouraging our Instagram lovers to do the same. Please put it out there. Put it out there. We're
Okay.
down at the 6 o'clock hour. What is your last, before you close, what do you want to say to us, Cassie, before we run off?
I really appreciate everyone coming in and sharing their thoughts. And I'm glad that, I was a little nervous because, like I said, it is a children's book that no one would actually truly relate to it. But I'm so glad that everyone got so much out of it and that a
Mhm.
couple more people are going to now go out and read the book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you all. Again, we're going to wait to hear from Priyanka. If her guest is not aligning with our schedule, and the same if Bella's guest is not aligning, we're going to use one of those and do a second round to this. All right. Thank you all.
Love
Listen,
it.
All right.
have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself.
And you too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. You
See
too.
you.
You.
Thank
Guys,
you.
Bye.
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 Bye bye.
Bye bye.